Have you ever noticed how often we are the architects of our own misery? We build up progress in our careers, our relationships, our daily habits, and then, almost systematically, we knock it all down. To understand why we do this, we need to open the therapist's toolkit. Inside is a conceptual framework for analyzing self-sabotage and the pursuit of meaning. This diagram illustrates a core concept. The complaint you bring to the surface is rarely the actual wound. That top-level issue is a decoy. Trace the wires past that surface complaint, through the complex machinery, and you hit the core wound. This is the deep, terrifying fear we are actively trying to avoid. We construct these elaborate, frustrating distractions in our daily lives for one simple reason. Acknowledging what actually hurts down at the bottom is too uncomfortable. The easiest way to avoid that discomfort is to look outward. We love to blame the people around us, because pointing a finger instantly absolves us of responsibility. But stepping out of your own way requires a difficult admission. When you look closely at the root of your recurring difficulties, you will often find yourself staring back. You are the one designing the maze. We also use motion to escape. We treat technology, constant busyness, and endless scrolling as non-prescription painkillers. We keep running frantically on the treadmill to avoid feeling the weight of the isolation right underneath us. That exhausting pace is not about getting anywhere. It is a highly effective strategy to stay emotionally completely still, keeping us safely isolated from our own thoughts. People constantly state that they want to change their lives, yet year after year, they stay exactly the same. That happens because of a basic psychological law. You cannot tip the scale toward a new life without bearing a heavy weight. Desired change always requires giving up a familiar, comforting crutch. Look at this cross-section mapping how transformation works. It is a steep climb. We endlessly procrastinate on those lower contemplation steps because taking real action forces us out of mapped territory and over the edge into the unknown. This trap is what therapists call the booby prize. You can spend years gaining deep insight into exactly why you self-sabotage, perfectly diagnosing your own flaws, while the arrow pointing toward real-world action remains completely broken. Self-awareness without a change in physical behavior is worthless. Knowing exactly why you do something is just well-informed self-sabotage if you refuse to make a different choice. So why do we refuse? Because beneath our daily complaints lie 4 foundational terrors that we simply do not want to accept as the price of admission for being human. This matrix maps them out. The ticking clock of death. The realization of our ultimate isolation, the paralyzing terror of freedom and making the wrong choice, and the lingering dread of meaninglessness. Rather than face these fears, we try to outsmart them. We actively ruin our own relationships and blow up our own careers so we do not have to wait around in suspense for life to inevitably hurt us. If you steer the ship directly into the storm yourself, at least you have your hands on the wheel. It is a twisted way of looking up at the universe and saying, "I call the shots." We choose to engineer our own misery because being the definitive author of our own destruction feels safer than accepting the terrifying vulnerability of having no control at all. Chasing momentary happiness is an exhausting treadmill. Human stability requires an anchor, a sense of meaning that accounts for the whole human experience, including the suffering. To find that anchor, look closely at this diagram. Between every stimulus you encounter and your eventual response, there is a microsecond of space. Inside that expanding wedge of time, we find the ability to choose, to grow, and to be free. We often feel hopelessly imprisoned by our pasts, our jobs, or our relationships. We cling desperately to the bars of our own narratives, mostly because stepping out into the vast freedom of that open doorway is intimidating. When we treat our negative emotions as bad verdicts, we push them away and veer off course. But if you read them like a compass, they hold the exact coordinates guiding you to what you actually need. Freedom lies in the ability to pause in that microsecond between stimulus and response, choosing how to navigate feelings rather than simply reacting. Psychologists call this emotional presbyopia. It is a condition where, as we age, we pull back to see the bigger picture clearly. realizing that the messy, chaotic foreground of our lives does not have to be perfectly resolved. Finding peace does not mean perfectly solving every problem on your desk. Making meaning of the unresolved things actually is the resolution. Real growth involves moving past the attempt to eradicate personal pain and focusing instead on connection with others. Our shared, messy vulnerabilities act like mirrors. When we finally reflect them back at one another, we realize our humanity is a shared condition, and that realization cures our isolation. Stepping out of your own way means trading the frantic comfort of avoidance for a much deeper anchor. When you stop hiding from your own fears, your individual struggles transform into the mechanism that connects you to the rest of the world.